Welcome to Brain Fuel Reads, and to another episode of our Read It All series, where we go cover to cover, chapter by chapter, through the most powerful books of our time. Today's book isn't just about self-improvement, it's about freedom. Freedom from overthinking, from people-pleasing, from trying to control the uncontrollable. We're diving into the Let Them theory by Mel Robbins, a life-changing mindset that's helped millions of people find peace, confidence, and clarity in a chaotic world. Mel Robbins has built her career on practical tools that unlock courage and emotional balance, from the 5-second rule to the high five habit. But in this book, she shares something simpler and maybe even more powerful. The idea is this: when people show you who they are, when they make choices that frustrate you, disappoint you, or confuse you, let them. Let them talk. Let them leave. Let them be who they are. Because the moment you stop trying to control everyone else, you regain control of yourself. This is the Let Them theory. It sounds small, almost too simple. But as Mel reveals in these pages, it's the key to emotional freedom, the bridge between exhaustion and peace. So let's dive in, chapter by chapter, and explore how this idea can change the way you handle relationships, rejection, comparison, and self-doubt. Chapter 1, the story that started it all. Mel begins the book with a story, the kind of story that feels so ordinary it could be any of us. Her son was getting ready for his senior prom. Like most parents, she wanted everything to be perfect. The tux, the dinner, the photos, the memories. But her son's plans weren't lining up with hers. His friends made different choices, and Mel found herself getting anxious, trying to fix things, trying to control every detail. Then it hit her. This tension, this frustration. It wasn't really about the prom. It was about control. She was trying to manage someone else's experience, someone else's emotions, as if she could protect him from disappointment by arranging his night. And then she stopped herself. She thought, you know what? Let them. Let them go with a different group. Let them make their own plans. Let them have their own night. It was such a small moment, but it unlocked something huge. That single phrase, let them, became her mantra. Every time she felt herself spiraling, trying to fix, manage, or persuade, she reminded herself, you can't control other people. You can only control yourself. That was the start of the Let Them theory, and she began to see how this mindset applied to everything: friendships, work, marriage, parenting, even her own self-doubt. Because so much of our stress, our pain, comes from resistance. From wanting life and other people to behave differently than they do. The Let Them theory is about acceptance, not passivity, but peace. It's not saying don't care, it's saying care about the right things. Mel realized that the more she let go of control, the more power she actually gained, the power of calm, presence, and trust. That's where Chapter 2 begins. Chapter 2, the trap of control. Control feels safe. When life feels uncertain, our instinct is to grip tighter, to plan, to predict, to fix. Mel describes how this need for control often comes from fear. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear that if we don't manage everything, it'll all fall apart. But here's the truth she discovered. Control is an illusion. No matter how much we plan, people will still act according to who they are, not who we want them to be. And when we try to force outcomes, we end up exhausted, resentful, and disconnected. Imagine holding sand in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. That's what control does. It pushes people away. Mel invites us to shift from control to clarity. Instead of asking, how can I make them change? We ask, what can I control right now? And the answer is always the same: yourself, your boundaries, your reactions, your focus. That's the foundation of the Let Them theory. It's not about giving up. It's about redirecting your energy toward what actually brings peace and results. Because once you let go of controlling others, You free up massive emotional space to grow, to rest, and to love people as they are, not as you wish they'd be. And that brings us to Chapter 3, where Mel introduces the second part of the formula, Let Me. Chapter 3, the Let Me shift. If Let Them is about release, Let Me is about return. Once you stop focusing on what everyone else is doing, you can finally focus on you. Mel explains that most of us live on emotional autopilot, constantly reacting to others. We spend so much energy thinking about what people think, say, or do that we forget to ask what we actually want. The Let Me shift is the other half of the Let Them theory. It's the act of turning inward. Let me take care of my own energy. Let me choose what matters. Let me do what feels aligned. Instead of, why didn't they text back? Ask, let me reach out if I want it, instead of, why don't they support me? Ask, let me support myself. This small language shift transforms everything. It puts you back in control of your own story. Mel says, the Let Them theory isn't about letting people walk all over you. It's about letting people reveal themselves. When you stop trying to control or chase, you start to see clearly. You realize who truly respects you, who reciprocates effort, and who doesn't. That clarity might hurt at first, but it's also liberating, because once you see the truth, you stop wasting energy on the wrong things. And as we'll see in Chapter 4, that shift doesn't just change relationships, it changes your stress, your focus, and your sense of peace. Chapter 4, Let Them and Calm Down. Mel tells a story here that most of us can relate to, feeling overwhelmed, overworked, pulled in every direction. She explains how anxiety and control often go hand in hand. When we're stressed, our nervous system goes into overdrive, scanning for threats, trying to fix things, trying to keep everyone happy. But the Let Them theory gives you a simple pause button. When someone disappoints you, let them. When plans fall apart, let them. When life doesn't go the way you expected, take a breath and let it. That phrase instantly lowers your emotional temperature. It interrupts the spiral of frustration and reminds you that you always have a choice. Because calm isn't found in control, it's found in acceptance. Mel shares how this shift changed her relationship with stress. Instead of resisting what she couldn't change, she started responding with curiosity. What is this moment teaching me? What can I actually do? That's where peace begins. Not when everything is perfect, but when you stop fighting what's not. And as this part of the book ends, Mel leaves us with a truth that echoes throughout the rest of the journey. The Let Them theory isn't about apathy, it's about power. The power of releasing what was never yours to hold, so you can finally focus on what is. In the next part, Mel goes deeper. Now that we understand how to let people be who they are, we'll face one of the biggest challenges: how to let go of what people think about us. Because the truth is, we all want to be liked, approved of, accepted. But chasing that approval is the fastest way to lose yourself. In Part 2, we'll explore how to stop fearing opinions, handle emotional reactions, and start standing tall in your own worth, no matter what anyone else says. Chapter 5, The Fear of What They Think. There's a question that haunts almost everyone. What will people think? Mel Robbins says this question has quietly shaped far too many of our decisions. What we wear, what we say, what we do, even who we become. In this chapter, she shares a simple truth. When you live for approval, you trade your freedom for fear. Mel admits that she used to twist herself into knots trying to make everyone happy. Family, coworkers, strangers on the internet. But no matter how much she tried, someone always had an opinion. Someone always criticized. Someone was always disappointed. And that's when she realized the people who judge you aren't thinking about you as much as you think they are. They're busy worrying about what you think of them. It's a loop. Everyone's anxious, everyone's pretending, and no one's free. The Let Them theory breaks that loop. If they want to judge you, let them. If they want to misunderstand you, let them. If they want to leave, let them. because your peace isn't found in managing their opinions. It's found in owning your truth. Mel says, when you stop performing for approval, you start living for alignment. You begin asking, does this feel right for me? Instead of, will this please them? And the more you practice that, the lighter you feel, the more you trust yourself. That's the magic of let them. It releases you from the invisible prison of other people's expectations. Chapter 6, Emotional Contagion. In this chapter, Mel explores something fascinating, how emotions spread like viruses. We've all felt it. Walk into a room where someone's angry and suddenly your chest tightens. Spend time with someone joyful and you feel uplifted. Emotions are contagious. Mel calls this emotional absorption. You start reacting to other people's moods as if they're your responsibility. You try to fix their sadness, calm their anger, or match their energy just to keep the peace. Sound familiar? This is where the let them theory becomes your shield. If someone's angry, let them be angry. If someone's negative, let them. You don't have to absorb it. You don't have to fix it. Mel shares how she learned to draw an invisible emotional boundary. When someone around her was spiraling, instead of jumping in to rescue, she reminded herself, that's theirs, not mine. It's not indifference, it's clarity. You can care without carrying. You can love people deeply without letting their storms drown you. The let them theory is emotional armor, not to block people out, but to keep your peace intact. Chapter 7, You Don't Need Their Permission. One of Mel's favorite truths is this: waiting for permission is the fastest way to stay stuck. In this chapter, she tells stories of people who spent years waiting for someone to approve their dream, to validate their worth, to tell them it was okay to take the next step. But the permission never came. And then, the moment they stopped waiting, everything changed. Mel reminds us that the let them theory doesn't just apply to relationships, it applies to ambition, creativity, and confidence. If people doubt you, let them. If people don't understand your vision, let them. If people say you can't, let them. And do it anyway. You don't need a crowd to believe in you. You just need yourself. This chapter feels like a pep talk from a friend who knows you're capable of more, but also knows how much you've been holding yourself back, worrying about opinions that don't pay your bills or build your joy. As Mel says, stop waiting for their approval. Start giving yourself permission, because when you do, something powerful happens. Your energy shifts from proving to creating, from seeking validation to expressing authenticity. And that's where the real growth begins. Chapter 8, The Peace That Comes from Letting Go. Mel closes this section with a truth that feels like a deep breath. When you finally stop trying to manage other people, their moods, their opinions, their choices, you make room for peace. Not the fragile peace that comes from silence or avoidance, but the solid, grounded peace that comes from acceptance. She explains that the let them theory is like decluttering your emotional life. Every time you let go of something that isn't yours, someone else's judgment, their expectations, their emotional baggage, you reclaim space for joy, creativity, and self-respect. Mel says, peace doesn't mean everything's calm. It means you're calm even when everything else isn't. And that's the true power of this mindset. It doesn't promise that people will change or that life will stop being messy. It promises that you will change, and that's enough to change everything. So part 2 teaches us this: you cannot control what people think, how they feel, or what they do, and you don't need to. The let them theory is an invitation to stop chasing approval and start living in peace with who you already are. When you stop seeking permission, you find confidence. And when you stop fighting for validation, you find freedom. But there's another layer to this: comparison. Because even if you stop caring what people think, it's still easy to care what they have. In part 3, Mel takes us into one of the hardest human traps of all: comparing ourselves to others and losing sight of our own path. Chapter 9, The Comparison Trap. Let's be honest. No matter how confident you are, comparison sneaks in. You scroll through social media and see someone younger, richer, happier, or so it seems, and suddenly your own life feels smaller. Mel Robbins says that comparison is one of the sneakiest ways we lose peace. It tricks us into measuring our worth by someone else's highlight reel. In this chapter, she admits she's been there, comparing herself to other speakers, authors, or even friends who seemed further ahead. But then she realized something. Whenever she was comparing, she wasn't living her life. She was watching someone else's. That's when she applied the let them theory again. If they're doing better, let them. If they're more popular, let them. If they're achieving something faster, let them. Let them have their moment. It doesn't take away yours. Because the truth is, someone else's success isn't your failure. Someone else's pace isn't your timeline. Mel says, you can't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. When you stop comparing, you make room for gratitude, and gratitude is the antidote to envy. Every time you catch yourself spiraling in comparison, take a deep breath and say, let them. Then turn inward and remind yourself, let me stay focused on my lane. That's where fulfillment lives, not in keeping up, but in showing up. Chapter 10, Friendship Without Friction. Friendships are beautiful, but they're also one of the hardest places to practice the let them theory. In this chapter, Mel shares stories that feel painfully familiar. Friends who drift away, who stop calling, who don't show up the way you hoped they would. It hurts because friendship is built on emotional investment. But when that connection starts feeling one-sided or strained, we often slip into control mode. We overthink every message, overanalyze every silence, trying to fix what might not be ours to fix. Mel's advice? If they stop texting, let them. If they cancel plans, let them. If they need space, let them. It's not coldness, it's clarity. The let them theory helps you see the truth of relationships. Some friendships are meant to evolve. Some are meant to fade. Some are meant to teach you what loyalty looks like. When you stop chasing people who aren't meeting you halfway, you make space for the ones who will. Mel reminds us that real friendship doesn't need convincing. It flows. It feels safe. You shouldn't have to beg for consistency. Let them drift if they must, and trust that what's meant for you will always stay. Chapter 11, The Social Media Mirage. Mel calls this the mirage because it's an illusion that constantly pulls our attention. Social media has trained us to think that everyone else's life is better. Their vacations, their bodies, their relationships, their success. But what we're really seeing are curated snapshots, not the full story. And yet we internalize those images as truth. We compare our messy reality to someone else's filtered fantasy. Mel suggests a radical experiment. Scroll less, observe more. When you feel that pang of jealousy, instead of judging yourself for it, pause and notice what it's pointing to. Envy isn't evil, it's information. It often reveals what you desire more of in your own life. So when someone's success triggers you, don't spiral. Say to yourself, let them inspire me, not intimidate me. If they're shining, let them. If they're happy, let them. Because your time is coming too. Mel says, the more you celebrate others, the easier it is to believe you'll be celebrated too. That shift from competition to curiosity changes everything. It turns comparison into connection. Chapter 12, When Relationships Change. This chapter goes deeper into letting go, not just of control, but of attachment to how things used to be. Mel writes beautifully about how people evolve. Sometimes the person who once fit perfectly in your life simply doesn't anymore. And that's not failure, it's growth. The hardest part, she says, is when you feel the shift but resist it. You keep holding on, hoping things will go back to the way they were. But that resistance only creates pain. And then, let me take care of myself. Let me heal. Let me learn. Let me make space for what's next. It's not rejection, it's redirection. When relationships change, it's often the universe creating room for growth you couldn't have found otherwise. Mel reminds us, the people who truly belong in your life don't require you to shrink. They meet you in your expansion. Chapter 13, Protecting Your Peace. Mel calls this the emotional heart of the book, because at its core, the let them theory is really about protecting your peace, fiercely, unapologetically, and daily. She explains that peace isn't something you stumble into. It's something you defend with boundaries. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates. They keep your energy safe while allowing love, connection, and support to flow through in healthy ways. Mel shares how she used to say yes to everything, even when she was exhausted, because she didn't want to disappoint anyone. But she realized every unnecessary yes was a quiet no to herself. The let them theory flips that pattern. If someone is upset, you set a boundary, let them. If they think you're selfish for saying no, let them. You're not responsible for managing their reactions. You're responsible for protecting your well-being. Mel says, your peace is not up for negotiation. This chapter ends with a simple but powerful truth. Every time you let someone misunderstand you, every time you let them react however they choose, without chasing, explaining, or apologizing, you strengthen your inner peace. And once you've tasted that peace, you'll never want to give it away again. Part 3 reminds us of something deeply human, that comparison, change, and conflict are inevitable. But suffering over them is optional. You can't stop people from evolving, achieving, or misunderstanding you, but you can choose how you respond. You can choose peace over panic, presence over proving. When you stop comparing, you start appreciating. When you stop clinging, you start growing. When you stop pleasing, you start living. And in the next part, Mel Robbins takes us even further into the power of letting go when life itself changes. She explores how to navigate transitions, disappointment, and the urge to fix others, and how letting them is actually the most loving thing you can do. Chapter 14, When Life Forces You to Let Go. Change, it's one of the few things we can count on, yet somehow it's also the one thing that shakes us the most. In this chapter, Mel Robbins opens up about those moments when life doesn't ask you to let go. It forces you to. The job ends, the relationship breaks, the plan falls apart, and no amount of control can stop it. She tells the story of a time when she and her husband faced a huge transition, one that threatened their sense of stability and identity. She tried everything to hold it together until she realized that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is surrender. Let them. Let it. Let go. Because clinging to what's no longer aligned only creates suffering. Mel compares it to trying to keep a door open that's meant to close. You stand there, straining to hold it, but life is trying to move you forward. The moment you step back and release your grip, you notice something miraculous. There's another door, quietly opening. She says letting go isn't giving up. It's giving in to the truth of what's already changing. This chapter is a deep reminder that every ending carries a hidden beginning. And when you stop resisting what's leaving, you start noticing what's arriving. Chapter 15, Stop Trying to Save Everyone. This is one of the most emotional chapters in the book, and one of the hardest truths Mel had to learn. You can't save people who don't want to be saved. You can love them, support them, guide them, but you can't live their growth for them. Mel shares how she used to exhaust herself trying to help people who didn't want help. Friends stuck in toxic relationships, family members repeating old patterns. She'd pour energy, advice, and hope into them, only to watch them choose the same pain again and again. Then she realized her efforts weren't helping, they were enabling. She says, the let them theory means letting people experience the consequences of their own choices, because that's how they grow. If they want to keep complaining, let them. If they want to ignore your advice, let them. If they want to learn the hard way, let them. That doesn't make you cold or unkind, it makes you wise. You can still love them deeply, but from a distance that protects your own peace. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do is step back and let life be their teacher. Mel calls this compassionate detachment. It's the art of caring without carrying, of loving without losing yourself. And it's one of the most liberating parts of the let them theory. Chapter 16, when you're the one who needs to change. Up until now, the let them theory has been about releasing control over others. But in this chapter, Mel flips the mirror back on us. What happens when you're the one who needs to change? She writes with disarming honesty about how easy it is to point fingers, to say they should, or if only they would. But sometimes the pattern begins with you. Mel encourages readers to pause and reflect. What if the situation that's frustrating you is actually showing you something about yourself? What if the person you need to let do something is you? She calls this the let me moment. Let me stop repeating the same story. Let me stop expecting different results from the same actions. Let me do what I've been afraid to do. This chapter is about radical accountability, because growth doesn't happen when you wish others would evolve. It happens when you decide to. And when you take that step, you stop waiting for life to change. You start leading it. Mel says, the moment you stop trying to control others and start changing yourself, you become unstoppable. Chapter 17, how to handle disappointment. Disappointment, it's inevitable. People let you down, plans fall through, life veers off course. But what you do with that disappointment determines everything. Mel explains that disappointment isn't really about what happens. It's about the gap between what you expected and what is. The wider that gap, the deeper the pain. So what do you do when people don't meet your expectations? You guessed it, you let them. Let them be who they are. Let them make their choices. Let them reveal their truth. Instead of spiraling into bitterness, you ask, what is this teaching me? Instead of shutting down, you remind yourself, this is data, not a definition. Mel shares a personal story about being deeply hurt by someone she trusted, and how she used the let them theory to move through the disappointment without losing her peace. She says when you stop expecting people to behave a certain way, you stop giving them the power to disappoint you. That's a tough truth, but a freeing one. Because the less you attach to how things should be, the more you can appreciate them as they are. And that is where emotional maturity begins. Part 4 shows us that letting them isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's realizing that love without control is the only kind of love that lasts, that helping without rescuing is the only kind of help that heals, and that change, though painful, is the only path to peace. When you stop fighting reality, you start flowing with it. When you stop clinging to what's gone, you make space for what's meant. And as we head into the final part of the book, Mel takes us to the heart of it all, how to apply the let them theory to love, endings, and the next version of you. Because once you've learned to let them, the real question becomes, what will you let yourself become? Chapter 18, Love Without Control. Love. It's the most beautiful thing we crave, and the one thing we often complicate the most. In this chapter, Mel Robbins talks about how the let them theory transforms how we give and receive love. Because so much of what we call love is actually control in disguise. We want people to love us a certain way. We want them to respond how we need. We want them to act the way we think love should look. But love rooted in control isn't love, it's fear. Mel tells the story of how she used to get frustrated when her husband didn't express affection in the same way she did. She'd try to change him, correct him, even test him, until she realized she wasn't loving him, she was managing him. And that's when the let them theory entered her marriage. If he loves differently, let him. If he communicates in his own way, let him. If he shows care through action, not words, let him. Because real love isn't about shaping someone into your ideal. It's about seeing who they are and choosing to love them there. She says, when you stop trying to control how love looks, you finally start feeling it. Love without control is spacious. It allows growth, individuality, and freedom. It lets both people breathe. And when you let people love you in their way, and you love them in yours, you stop grasping for perfection and start building connection. Chapter 19. Endings and closure. Every relationship, every chapter, every season has an ending. Sometimes we choose it, sometimes it chooses us. But either way, endings are part of life's rhythm. Mel describes endings as emotional crossroads. There's sadness, nostalgia, sometimes anger, but there's also a quiet opportunity to let go with grace. She shares a story of a friendship that faded after years of closeness. For months, she resisted it, replaying conversations, wondering what went wrong. Then one day, she realized nothing went wrong. The season simply ended. And that's what the let them theory teaches us. If someone drifts away, let them. If a chapter closes, let it. If life asks you to move on, listen. Closure doesn't come from an apology or an explanation. It comes from acceptance. She writes, "You don't heal by getting answers. You heal by deciding you no longer need them." Endings are rarely comfortable, but they're always clarifying. They show you what was real, what was temporary, and what you're ready to grow beyond. And once you stop clinging to the past, your hands are free to build what's next. Chapter 20. The Let Me Era. This final chapter is where the entire book comes full circle. Mel calls it the Let Me Era, the season of your life where you stop reacting to others and start responding to yourself. You've let them, now you let me. Let me chase what excites me. Let me set boundaries that protect my peace. Let me take responsibility for my happiness. Let me live my life without apology. This era is about ownership of your time, your choices, your emotions. It's about choosing joy even when others don't understand it. Mel says, when you stop trying to be chosen, you realize you are always free to choose yourself. She encourages you to think of the let them theory not as a one-time revelation, but a daily practice. Each morning, you'll face moments that test it, a rude comment, a canceled plan, an unmet expectation. And every time, you get to choose peace over panic by whispering those two powerful words, let them. Then turn inward and add the next two, let me. Let me grow. Let me rest. Let me shine. That's what living free looks like. As we reach the end of the Let Them theory, Mel Robbins leaves us with a message that's both gentle and revolutionary. You can't control others, and you don't need to. You can't make everyone love you, agree with you, or understand you. And you don't have to, because peace doesn't come from changing others. It comes from finally being okay with yourself. The Let Them theory is more than a mindset. It's a way of living that shifts everything. It's how you move from chaos to clarity, from anxiety to calm, from reaction to power. So the next time you feel the pull to fix, prove, or chase, stop. Take a deep breath and remember, let them. And then with compassion and courage, whisper back to yourself, let me. Let me live freely. Let me trust the process. Let me love deeply without fear. Let me be at peace with what is. Because once you let them, you finally make space to let yourself become.